What's up, everybody? Do you want to be happy? Do you want to know what brings happiness? Well, you're in luck because today we're going to look at the 9 things that bring happiness from Coach John Wooden's biography. So this will be a fun episode. We're going to go through each one. This is episode 118, the Existential Stoic Podcast. I'm Danny with my buddy Randy. What's up, Randy?
Hey, Danny.
I don't think we need to ask why should we want to be happy, right? I mean, everybody presumably wants that.
Actually, it is a good question to ask because I think a lot of people are confused that they want happiness. Because a lot of people are definite they want certain things. They're definite they want this car. They're definite they want this house. They're definite they want these pictures on Instagram. But they don't actually realize that most of the time why they want these things is actually the happiness we think we'll get in achieving them. And also sometimes the happiness we get in the pursuit of these things. So while it may seem we want a lot of things, it's really happiness that's behind a lot of it.
That's one of the things I like the most from reading Aristotle and stuff was like that clarity that they give you about that idea that everything we're doing is really for something else. And when you look at it, the highest goal we're really after is happiness for most of us, right? We just want a happy life, a good life. And I think so, I will always take 9 steps to bring us closer to that. That's always a helpful way to go.
Yeah. So I was just reading this John Wooden's biography because we're both on a biography kick recently. And this jumped out at me because I'm like, this is exactly what everybody's looking for. He's like a very well-renowned basketball coach. He's the only person to have gotten to the NBA Hall of Fame twice, once as a player and once as a coach. He was took UCLA to 7 championship wins in a row. He also coached Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So he's done a whole bunch of stuff, but he had a great philosophy behind all of it. And that's why he often won, because he said, don't focus on winning, focus on doing the best you can. And
which is like great advice.
By doing that, the guys gave all that they could. And also another thing that I really liked about him was that he was always focused on the fundamentals. Like he spent a whole practice period each year just focusing on how to put on your socks correctly to prevent blisters, because that was something in their control, preventing blisters. And so if they did it correctly every time, they wouldn't lose guys to injuries or to days off or anything like that due to blisters. So they knew that was in their control. They can take care of this. Let's do it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I like that he's a coach too, because it gives you a different perspective on things because he's used to interacting with people in intense situations, right? Tense situations. And I really like that idea of not focusing on winning, because I think we do that to ourselves all the time. We focus on things as if it's like a succeed or fail situation and everything succeed or fail, rather than looking at it like a competition against ourselves. Did I do my best? Did I put my best in? Because if I did, I didn't fail, right? I didn't do anything wrong. I did my best. Maybe I even did better than I did before. I'm progressing. That's what matters. The win and losing will come once everybody's on board doing that. And I really like that idea because it kind of like, it puts things in that perspective of, what is in your control and keeping that in mind rather than focusing on without and letting that get in your head and really ruin everything.
Yeah, it's the Stoic idea of focusing on what's in your control. So giving all you've got, that's in your control. Winning or losing, totally out of your control. Random things can happen. Who knows? But giving all you got, that's within your control. So do that.
All right. Well, let's get into these things because we got 9. I'll read the first one because I want to. So promise yourself that you will talk health, happiness, and prosperity as often as possible. I like this one because I think it's like, it's funny because I find a lot of these tips are very like, they seem so simple. And yet I think most of them work. And this reminded me actually when I read it of the small delights thing, right? Where you're reminding yourself basically all the time, or you're trying to keep your attitude positive by constantly bringing in the positivity, by constantly making that a part of the conversation of your daily life, of your attitude. And that repetition, really just makes it possible, I think, or makes it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point because it's never black or white. We're always somewhere kind of on this scale. So it's never like you're healthy or you're sick. You're always somewhere in between, and you're never happy or sad. It's somewhere in between. But we're always given the choice what we want to decide. Like we can say, "Oh, I'm 70% happy," or you could say, "I'm 30% not happy. Why does my life suck?" And it's like totally up to you. Whatever you want, or vice versa. It could be 70% unhappy, but you could just take that same energy and focus it on the 30% happiness you have, and you're going to be a happy person.
Yeah. I also love that you mentioned health too, because I think, I've noticed myself do this to I mean, I've done this to myself rather, numerous times, especially in the past where like, I'm depressed or something and I'm sitting watching TV and I start convincing myself I don't feel good. And I start to feel worse and worse as time progresses, right? Because you start convincing yourself like, oh, I feel terrible. I'm depressed. I'm upset. You start getting more and more negative. And guess what? It becomes a reality, and then it just gets worse and worse, right? And the only way out of that is to look at it from the opposite perspective. And it's so
Absolutely.
true. It's so funny. So I like that because I think Nietzsche reminds us of this all the time, right? The physiological or the biological is completely connected to our mental. Like, if we are exhausted, if we are out of shape, we're going to feel worse. If we and conversely, right? If we think of ourselves as sick, if we think of ourselves as miserable, we're going to be that way. So it's, I think there's a interesting
Yeah.
connection
And
there.
also, since we're covering everyone, prosperity is important too.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
recognizing that we live in an abundant universe, telling yourself every day, I'll have all the money I ever need. Good
Yeah.
things are coming my way. And actually believing that, because once you do, then it'll start happening. And then once it does happen, write it down so you can remember. Be like, oh, you know what? I got a check
Yeah.
out of nowhere for $100. That's pretty awesome. What free money just came to me? So like
Mhm.
recognizing this stuff, because whatever you find, whatever you want or you're searching for, you'll find. So if you want more money, start looking for it.
Yeah, I think that's a valuable point.
Yeah, so I'll take the second one. We'll just go
Yes.
alternate back and forth.
Okay.
All right. So the
Sounds
second
good.
one is promise yourself to make all your friends know there is something in them that is special and that you value.
I like this one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Danny, there is
Yeah.
something special in you and something that I value. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Same
I
true to
always
you.
thought, well, I
Oh,
always
go ahead.
thought when we were younger that you just had like a natural knack for communicating with people. And
Oh, thank you.
yeah. And
Yeah, I
also,
actually. Oh,
also,
go ahead.
also, I always looked at you as one of the smartest guys that I knew too.
Oh, thank you. I've always looked at you as one of the smartest people I know, so I find that's funny. It's a very nice compliment. I appreciate it. And
Mm-hmm.
I've always appreciated too. I've always been very not envious, but very proud to have a friend who's so motivated and tries so many different things. I love that about you. So I think you do a lot of different things in life, and I think that's a great way to be. So I really do like that. Yeah, I value that a lot. And I think, I think this is such a good one too, because it's like, it's reminding yourself to actually look at the people in your life and see why you interact with them and what's valuable about them and telling them because it just makes everybody happy, right? Like it feels good to hear that from your best friend, right? Like it felt good to hear that from you. And it makes me feel good. It makes my day better. I think that's just the important point.
Mm-hmm. I also really liked how you're always able to go after what you want. Like you
Yeah.
are always with girls that you wanted to be with. You always drove cars you wanted to drive. Like I still remember that blue Firebird
I
when
love
we
that
drove into the
thing.
snowbank one day. Like
That happened a lot though. That thing could not turn in the snow. It was terrible. I hit so many snowbanks in that car.
yeah, but it was a tank. Like you couldn't
Yeah,
you
well,
couldn't hurt it,
you
just
couldn't
shovel it
destroy.
out and it was good to go. Yeah.
And drove it off road.
Yeah, but it's
That's fun.
important to let your friends know how much you value them, because like it or not, everybody's going to die, and one person is going to die first.
Yeah.
And that one person that dies first, if there's some consciousness afterward, they may regret things that they didn't say. But the person who's left behind most likely will regret things they didn't say if there's stuff that they haven't left said. But if you tell people you love, people you care about, how you truly feel about them, worst case scenario, they may not accept it. Cool, fine. At least you did what's in your control. Best case scenario, they now know how much they mean to you,
Yeah,
and that deepens your friendship.
it does. And you know what? I think it's also nice too, because what you're kind of taking a moment too to think about what you actually value in the person. And I think that's also a good way to think anyway, because it makes us kind of constantly remind ourselves too, like of these relationships, their importance and what inspires us. Because if you remember, like Aristotle said, like, a good friendship is it allows us to have training in virtue. And I think what he meant is like, like a situation where you have a really good friend, like our relationship, I think we both become better because of it. Like doing this, right, every week has definitely improved my life, made me better, right? Helped me keep improving and keep doing better. And I know it's done the same for you. And I think that's like one of those things where if you just remind yourself to be aware of it, it can happen, and it becomes a huge part of your happiness.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's immeasurable the difference that it makes. Because like before, we would talk maybe once a month or once every 6 months
Yeah.
at best. Even though
Yeah.
we're great friends, it was just
We're
like
just
we
busy.
were
Yeah.
both up to our own things in different places of the world. But now, like being able to talk every week, anytime we have problems, we can always
Yeah.
talk to each other about it, and we're able to help each other out. And so, I encourage everyone out there to do something like this with your friends because it definitely will make a difference.
And you know the conversation's coming too. So you're not even stressed about like, if something happens, I don't even worry about it sometimes. If it's like middle of the week, I'm like, I'll talk to him. Like you'll talk. So it's like not a big deal. I like that too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, that's good. So the third one then is promise to think only of the best, to work only for the best, and to expect only the best in yourself and others. And this one I think is interesting because when the first time I read this, I thought it sounded too how do I say this? Too like high stakes, kind of imaginative, But then I was really thinking about it, and I think, it does work because again, this is going back to what's in our control, right? It's focused. I like that it's focused on you and on those you're relating with, that you should expect the best out of yourself, out of them. And you should put that in also. It should be your best work. Whatever you can do, whatever you can bring to the table, do it the best, and then you've done your part. And I like that about it too. Yeah.
Yeah. And like one thing that he mentioned in the book was like in a competition, there's always going to be a winner and loser. But like and losing is okay, but you don't want to lose because you sold yourself out. You don't want to lose because you didn't give your all, because then you have to live with that the rest of your life, being like, oh, could I have actually put in the work? Could I have actually done it to have won that? Whereas if you knew you gave everything you could and you just got beaten, okay, cool. He was better than you. Totally fine. Move on. But like to live with the rest of your life with that, could I have done better? Could I have put in a little bit more? That's the really important part for doing only of the best.
Well, it's nice too. Is it really, again, it takes away that sort of black and white success or failure situation, and instead makes it something that's more of degree. And like, if you are a competitive person, you want to compete against other people that are successful and good, because that'll make you better, right? It also tests you. You don't want to compete against people who suck all the time, because you're just going to destroy them. And what's the point of playing, right? Or what's the point of doing it, whether it's basketball or whatever you're engaged in. So yeah. Like that.
And just the last part of there is expect only the best in yourself and others. So like we already talked about it in yourself, but I just wanted to touch on the others part. So I think there's two parts to that. Expecting only the best in others. That means that you don't stand for others just doing nothing. And that comes to boundaries. And I think that's really important, because like if you just let other people do whatever, they're going to walk all over you. Just because it's human nature, Yeah, but the other thing is to expect only the best in others is that everybody's trying to do the best that they can. And so like understanding when people do stuff that you can't see the reason in, or you're just like, how could they do that? Realizing that they're in that moment just doing the best they can. If they knew better, they would do better. And so just kind of understanding when things don't go the way you expect them to go, that it's okay, because they're trying to do the best they can. And if you were in their shoes, you would do the exact same thing.
I'm glad you mentioned that too, though, because I think that is an important part of it. And it keeps us from getting angry for no reason, right? Jealous or whatever, because you see the person doing their best, not just like, flaking off or whatever, which is good.
All right. So the next one is promise to be just as enthusiastic about the success of others as you are about your own. So this one is huge, because in every area of my life where I have succeeded, first thing that happened was I started being happy for other people who have already succeeded. Instead of being jealous, I started looking at it as, wow, look at what they've already accomplished. That's awesome. Let me celebrate that. And then one day, maybe I'll be able to get there. But it was actually, it was almost like as soon as I was able to not be jealous, then it was able to come to me. Because once I was jealous, I was actually like holding it away from me. But as soon as I turned that jealousy into like gratitude, like, wow, the universe did it for them. That's awesome. I'm going to be so happy for them. As soon as I changed that, then it came to me.
I think it's a good point too, because part of it is also like when you're jealous, I think you're looking at the situation incorrectly, because you're looking at it like they just magically got there. you're not seeing all the stuff. But when you're actually like enthusiastic about other people's success, you are more aware of the work they put in. You're more aware of the effort they put in and why they deserve it. And I think that's the other side of it. Like, and I think that's also why it comes to you then, because you're no longer focusing on the wrong thing. You're focusing on what's right about it, and you see that it's possible. It's something doable that you can also do and succeed, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's,
And
yeah.
there was like one specific moment in my life when I really got it, where it was like I was looking at someone who was a lot more successful than me, and we became close friends. And I was partially jealous because he was so successful. I was like, wow, he has so much money, all this stuff, and I was like, I was a little bit jealous, but I was like, okay, he's an awesome guy. He deserves it. Let me just be grateful for that. And then
Yeah.
around that time was when I started to get some of it as well. So I felt internally, I felt like I don't really deserve this. And so it took a while for me to flip that
Yeah.
around, to deal with the being not deserving of it, when I realized finally I'm putting in the work, so I do deserve it. But then when I really got it was like somebody who I helped get started. I saw them go into like explosive success. And I saw all the work that he put in to get there, but I also saw the results of it. And it was like how parents are very, very proud of their children and
Yeah.
are very happy with their
Yeah.
children. I saw the same exact thing. And at that moment, I really got it, that it's like being happy for other people's success. That's that's all you need to do, because it's really just the success. Like the idea that we're
Yeah.
different from everybody else. Like
Yeah.
go find your own planet. Like we're all living
Mm.
on this same planet. We're all the same organic matter on this planet. Like as long as the organic matter in total is getting better, the whole planet is getting better. So like thinking that it's
Yeah.
someone else's success is really diluting yourself. Any success is your success because you're in the same universe as them. So
No, it's true. Well, I like your point too about helping too, because I think that's the other side of it too. Is like, when you start having some success and you start realizing that you are good at something, like you've gotten over the fact that like you actually can do it, in your head, and you start helping others too. You start meeting other people, and you start that their success starts becoming a part of your own success. And I think that's the same thing with like friendships and stuff. When you can celebrate other people's success, it also feels good as well because you can be happy about it. You see the world improving and all, like you said. And I think that's, yeah, it's a great way to be.
yeah, and you
Awesome.
can just, I mean, especially if there's somebody you can just put
Oh,
yourself
yeah.
in their shoes and just like imagine what it's like to be them. Imagine if that was happening to you, and just be like, you can actually like, it's like almost like compassion, where like you
Yeah.
can experience it with them. And especially if it's somebody close to you because you care about them, you're like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really, really happy for you.
Yeah, it feels really good. And I think it increases our own happiness as well because the world is also better for it, right? When you see the success around you and you celebrate it, I think you just feel better. You feel like you're in a better world. So
Mhm.
number 5 then is promise yourself to be so strong that nothing can disturb your peace of mind. And I like this one because I think this is one that I literally have to like remind myself of this constantly. But I think we all do. I think it's very easy to kind of like, our mindset, our attitudes, they shift dramatically a lot. And I think, part of happiness, I think, is getting control of that. It's practicing healthy, attitudes, healthy mindsets, healthy perspectives. And I really like this because this idea that you're so strong, nothing can disturb your peace of mind, right? That there's nothing really out there in the world that has the power to really affect how I see things and how I think and how I feel unless I let it. And I just like this idea. I think it's a good one, but it takes constant
Yeah,
reminding and constant practice.
definitely. So there's like, the first thing I got from this is it like the question I ask myself whenever I get frustrated or caught up in something? I'm like, is this really worth losing my peace of mind over? Because
Yeah.
in the end, it's up to me. And,
Yeah.
the answer could be yes, and I could lose my peace of mind for a while. And I do that often. But like, sometimes I'm just like, no, like I enjoy, because the true answer is no. I really enjoy my peace of mind. So
Yeah.
like some things I'm just struggling on letting go more quickly. And that's a lesson that I'm learning. But the second
I
thing
was
was in
just
that.
dealing with this lesson the other day, by the way. So
Dude,
trying to decide if I want to continue this one project. I'm like, is it really worth it? Does it
I know.
matter?
Dude, it's like every day, or not every day, but like every few days, I feel like I'm just going from one problem to the next. And I know that's the way life is, but I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, when am I going to
Oh
stop
God.
letting this interfere with my peace of mind? Because as soon as I get peace of mind, I'm like, this is so good. And then like, how
Yeah.
long is it going to last this time? Let's see if I can keep it a little bit longer. Yeah.
No, because there's
But
nothing better when you get a whole day like that. When you have that mindset all day, it's like the best. and it's like
Mhm.
productive and awesome. And yeah, anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And just the second point is just uh, this reminds me of from the book Dare by Barry McDonough, how he has the four parts, the part method for reducing panic, anxiety, worry, all of that stuff. It's just having like a whatever mentality that no matter what comes, you can handle it. And so that's the idea of just being strong enough to know that nothing can disturb you, nothing can disturb your peace of mind. And it really is true. You can handle whatever, but we just think that we're not able to. And that causes a lot of fear, a lot of
Oh
paralysis.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say too, one of the things too is like promising yourself to be so strong that nothing can disturb your peace of mind. I think one of the things that you can kind of like help yourself get to that point if you're not there too is also just prove it to yourself. You know, if you're in a situation where you start to feel anger or you start to get depressed, go take a walk, convince yourself that you're not, change your mindset, take control of it, even just once, and you realize you can do it. That's all it takes, I think. It just takes getting yourself out of that situation once. And I think once you do that, you realize you do have the strength. And it's like, but you got to prove it to yourself too.
Yeah, it's like that moment in Forrest Gump where Lieutenant Dan is up on the top of the boat in the middle of the storm and he's yelling like, "Come on, bring it on! Is this the word you've got? You can't bring this boat down." Because like usually it's like at those worst moments when we're the most terrified, when we think the worst is going to happen, and
Yeah,
that's usually the peak of it, and then it comes
yeah,
down. So at that peak, just be like, "Come on, I'm tired of this. Like I'm tired of this fear mongering. Just get it over with. Let's do it, and
yeah,
and see what happens."
yeah. It's a good way to be.
All right. So the next one is promise to forget the mistakes of the past and press on to greater achievements in the future. So this one is great because we mentioned it in the quick fix this week, where basically like a lot of people, they dictate their lives based on the story of their past. And sure, while that might have had some impact in getting you to where you are today, that has absolutely no impact on where you can get to in the future. Because every day you can choose to change whatever you want. And it may not be a
Yeah,
fast process, but you can get there. So, like, looking and especially mistakes of the past. So, like, everybody has these mistakes. Like, for me, it was going to vet school, blowing $250,000 on school and being in student debt and all that. Like, that was a huge mistake. And it limited me for many years. I was depressed for many years because, like, student debt
yeah,
is rough. It's like, you know, there's not much
yeah. It
worse debt
sucks.
than that because you can't bankrupt out of it. There's two ways out of it: pay it off
Do you
or
know it's
die.
almost? Do you know
Yeah,
it's almost 2 trillion now?
I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
you know,
right? Why would you
the
be? But
good thing is that as the money printers go,
yeah,
student debt numbers don't matter as much. So yeah,
no, they don't. They definitely don't.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
But
funny.
like, okay, so mistakes of your past. Here's the thing: everybody wants good judgment. Well, you get good judgment through experience,
Yeah,
and experience consists of bad judgment and mistakes. So these mistakes that you made, they have to be made in order for you to eventually be able to make good judgment. So like it was because of these mistakes that I made that I was able to learn about money and learn about how to do these things. So then I could overcome it. And so that uh, forgetting about the past and pressing on to greater moments in the future, because like we all have a great life ahead of us. But the thing is,
yeah.
that great life is ahead of us. So you have to press on, you have to move forward, and you have to keep on going. And if you let these things from the past drag you down, they'll just keep dragging you down.
Well, I think too. To that point too, I think it's one thing to recognize the past as a crucial component of who you are, because I think it is, and it's those lessons that you've learned. And I think, but if you let the past completely define you, that's where you stay stuck in the past and you don't move on. And I really like that second part where he says, press on to greater achievements in the future, because you need to focus on those greater goals, those greater achievements to motivate yourself to not let yourself get, pulled down by that past, right? Or just stuck in it. Because I see that a lot with people where, they're stuck in some past, they let others guilt trip them or make them constantly remember it or whatever. And they're stuck in this like world that doesn't progress in time and doesn't allow them to progress on to the life that's really right for them. And I think that is a danger.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like people give up too soon. They've lost a couple times, things haven't worked out a couple times, and they're just done. And it's like, listen, if you've tried less than 1,000 times, guess what? I don't really have sympathy for you because you, you just haven't tried
Literally.
enough. You haven't thrown enough
Yeah.
stuff against the wall. And that's literally what it takes. You just keep going and going and going and going. Eventually something sticks. You'll never know what it is until it does, but you just have to keep going until something does.
And once it does, you start seeing that, more and more shit sticks. That's just how it goes. It
Yeah,
really does.
and then everything you wanted comes to you in quicker abundance than you could ever expect, and you'll be like, where was this my whole entire life? But it
I
just
like this.
takes going after it.
I like it too because it's not letting yourself caught up by small failures or by single instances, right? And instead focusing on the progress that can continuously be made. Because a lot of times it also throwing shit at the wall is also just another way of saying you need to develop the skills to get to the point where you can be successful, and that takes time and it takes a lot of failure, right? It doesn't happen instantaneously. Yeah, it's a good one. Um, I like the next one actually a lot. So, because I think it's true that the promise to wear a cheerful appearance at all times and give every person you meet a smile. And the reason why I like this when I read it was that, I think we don't think about how much our own appearance has an impact on the way the world around us both appears and then is interpreted. Like if you smile at people when you go out, they'll smile back, generally speaking, right? It makes the world brighter, but it also helps you maintain that attitude of happiness because you're wearing a smile, and it's hard not to be happy when you're smiling. And it's like doing these little tiny things that seem insignificant, but that add up to a really important, huge impact on your mental health and on the world around you, I think. And they're easy to do.
It's brilliant for me. To what it does is it just proves the true abundance of the world. Okay. Take something that costs absolutely nothing, a smile. Okay.
Yeah.
Go out, look at every person you can see and smile at them. Well, guess what? Some may not smile back. That's okay. Some may not look at you. Still okay.
Yeah.
But guess what? Eventually, some people will smile at you. They'll feel better. They'll smile back. And then they'll likely smile at other people too. They're like, wow, look at this. It's catching on. So all of a sudden, you're literally, for the cost of nothing, you're spreading cheer around the entire world. You're making a difference in all these people's lives for doing nothing. Like everybody who's sitting at home being like, I want a job that makes a difference. Well, it's like, start making a difference by just smiling at people. Like you can do that right now. Get off your butt. Stop worrying about having this job that makes a difference. Go smile at people and make a difference in your life and in their lives right now.
And I think I like it too because it reminds us too that just like that a lot of how we appear and how we feel is just in our control. But it takes this kind of remembering to do it, right? And this promise to yourself to do it over and over because it's easy to forget. And like, I think it makes a huge difference. It does. Yeah.
Abe Lincoln wouldn't hire a guy because of his face. The guy didn't smile. And he's like, anybody over 30 years old is responsible for their face. And so like it's true. Like after a certain age, because
I like that
you may not feel like smiling, but here's the thing: feelings and actions go hand in hand. So like it's really a chicken or the egg. And sure, a feeling can spark an action, but an action can also spark a feeling. And they've shown that by doing the action, it's a more reliable way to get the feeling you want. So if you want happiness, smile. It'll get you happiness.
It's also like, it makes you accountable and responsible too. You don't want to, because like there's so many people that want to play the victim and want to bring other people down so they feel as crappy as they feel and stuff. And it's like, why are you trying to do that to other people? Be responsible for yourself, And I mean, we all get there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like blaming anyone, but like at the same time, it's like when you start to think about these things, it seems so obvious. I think that's part of why it's important to remind ourselves, right, over and over. All right. These are good.
So the next one would be promise to give so much time to improving yourself that you have no time to criticize others.
Ooh.
This one
is a good one.
This one is good because everyone's very, very quick to criticize others. And I'm as guilty of this as anyone else. Yeah. But there's that saying, judge not lest you be judged. And really, I think that it is important to give this much time to improving yourself. Like, I believe it was Jim Rohn who always said, make sure you're spending more time working on yourself than working on your job. And that's something that a lot of people lose because as soon as they're out of school, they're done working on themselves. Like most people read maybe a book a year, but it's not a book on personal improvement or anything like that. Usually it's I don't know, some type of romance or fantasy type of thing. And so really, if you focus so much time to improve yourself, then that way you can take that criticism that you would be giving to other people, you can give it to yourself and then actually improve yourself. Whereas if you go criticizing other people, they're not going to listen to you. They're probably going to resent you for it.
Yeah. Not to mention too, though, that just seeking out to criticize others is also really just proves that you're not doing what you should be doing and you're not happy with your own life. If you're focused on criticizing others just for the sake of criticizing them, it's because you're not happy. It's one thing to offer constructive criticism. It's one thing to help somebody along. Like I know, I know you've helped others doing like channels and stuff like that in the past, and that's awesome because you were in a position to do it, right? And you had the ability to, but you weren't, so you might have offered them some constructive criticism, but you weren't criticizing just for the sake of doing it, and I think there is a big distinction there to be made. And I think when we focus on improving ourselves too, we're also setting ourselves up for success and to keep moving forward. I think you're right. It's a lot of people, like, they just get stuck because they think they shouldn't have to do anything else. But it's like, you do. You have to keep working. This is the long game we're playing, right? And it doesn't end until it officially ends. So you have to keep working on yourself the whole time. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, and it's another thing that I've noticed is like in one of the books that I read, it was saying how, our life is like the biggest laboratory experiment that we have going on. And so basically we can look at successful people and we can look at unsuccessful people and see what they do. And so I started doing this with like the most successful people that I knew and the most unsuccessful people that I knew. And the most successful people that I knew always were looking at ways to compliment others. When other people were talking bad about them, they would say, but you know what? They're really good at doing this. They do a great job at this. And they were always focused on the good that person was doing. However, the most unsuccessful people that I had as examples, they were so quick to judge. They couldn't do it themselves. They wouldn't even try doing it, but they were so quick to judge the other person. And so it was just a very clear division between what it takes. Like, if you want to be successful, start looking for the positive in others. If you want to be unsuccessful, start looking for the negatives. And sure as night follows day, you will get there.
It's funny too. I'm glad you mentioned that because I think I've noticed with people that criticize others often, it's a lack of confidence in themselves that they could do it. Because like, I believe I can do anything if I really try and put myself to it. And I think I extend that belief to everybody else. I think everybody's capable of doing whatever they're doing. And usually it's just they need to put more of themselves into it or learn more or whatever if they're struggling. But I think the criticizing is really a sign that you're not doing those things that you should be doing because you're really like, it's like a jealousy or an anger or an envy, right? That these other people are trying and you're trying to bring them down. And so I really think it's a good point because your own success, your own strength, your own, endurance and perseverance really comes from also, having that belief and not wanting to bring down others because there's no reason to.
I'm glad you brought that up because there was a moment like a few weeks ago where I was really stressed about some things going on in my life. And I was listening to a book at that time and it said, like, take the thing you're most stressed about and chances are, what you should be doing and you're not doing it. And I saw that in my life. I knew what I should be doing and I wasn't doing it. And I literally was letting myself down. I wasn't doing my best. And like, as soon as I fixed that, it turned everything around. The stress went away. The problems went away. It was just a lack of knowing what to do and not doing it.
Dude, it's funny. I swear to God, I often think like intellectually, I know what to do 100% of the time. In practice, it's like, there's like this thing, this like gulf that opens up in between, right? And you got to keep those two close or it gets all messed up. But it takes constant reminding of yourself, right? It takes practice. And it takes a long time to get to that point.
Absolutely.
All right. Should we do number 9 then? The last
Let's do
one.
number 9.
All right. So promise to be too large.
Yeah.
All right. So number 9 then.
Number 9.
All right. So promise to be too large for worry, too noble for anger, too strong for fear, and too happy to permit trouble to press on you. And I really like this one because I think, it reminds us of like the strength that we need in a sense. It's reminding yourself to kind of like that this is in your control, that you shouldn't let these other things affect you, and that you can actually essentially have what you want if you just, cultivate that willpower, that attitude, that like mental strength, right? To be in the world and to keep persisting towards your goals. I like this one a lot. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what I got from this is like he says promise to in this one, and also in a lot of the other ones, he says promise
Yeah.
yourself. And so like I like that he says that because that's just a reminder, like a promise that you make with yourself. And here's the thing, because we're all going to have times when we worry. We're all going to have times when we're angry. We're going to have times when we're fearful, and we're going to have times when we have troubles pressing on us. And during those times when those are occurring, we can remember the promise that we made to ourselves. We said, you know what? I know that things are difficult now, but I made a promise with myself, and I know it's true. I can hold this, that I am going to be better than this. So it's kind of like a reminder for yourself that you can overcome whatever comes at you.
And that you can, I mean, that you have the power to do it, right? That you're making this promise to yourself because it's within your power, which I also like that language because the promise, implies that, right? It implies that it's within our power to do it. I also like that he says, the way he worded this one, I like that it's too large for worry. Like you're too big for these small, stupid things that most people worry about, right? Or too noble for anger, that it's just not within your nature. Like I like this too because it's also reminding us, like, the things that we generally like best about others tend to be that they're confident, they know themselves, they don't let the world dictate how they are, right? Which is like that strength of will. And I think all of this speaks to this, and it's all necessary if you want to be happy, right? I think this is one of the great things is that if you really want to be happy, you can't let all these, and it is about that dichotomy of control, because you can't let all these external things influence your attitude and affect you. And I think that's really, it's really funny, but it's true, right? It's right there. So yeah, I like that a lot. It's a good one to end on.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's it. 9 ways to be
Yeah.
happy.
9 ways to bring happiness, right? Promises that you can make. And again, I think the promising point is really important because it's reminding yourself that this is within your control. And the one thing I will say lastly that I really liked about this is that it really is all about how you think and the things you can do that you can practice and implement every day, and that relationship between your physical body and your mental side, your mental self. And I think that's crucial. So yeah, this is a great set of 9 things that you can do, 9 promises to bring happiness. Check us out midweek for our quick fix. Check us out on YouTube. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, we have one more thing. Sorry,
One quick thing I just want to suggest for anybody. If anybody wants to be happier or is not feeling happy right now and they really want to change that, I would suggest that you actually put these into practice. Like listening to us is one thing, but actually doing it is another thing. And I always like the philosophy that Ben Franklin used with his virtues, where basically he took each virtue for a week, and each day of that week he just focused on that virtue. Or you could just do it for a day. Maybe you do number 1 for the first day, number 2 for the second day, and you just keep repeating it. And just for that day or just for that week, you're focusing on this specific thing. And that will really help to reinforce it and to start making it a part of your character. And I would challenge any of you, if you are unhappy right now and you do this for 100 days, I dare you, I double dog dare you to come back to us and tell us that you're not happy in 100 days. I would be shocked.
Dude,
but I would love to hear from you. Yeah.
No, I think that's a great point. Everybody should make these promises, and like, don't underestimate how much this stuff really does work, because I think we can both attest to it. And like, I mean, we've been doing this for a little over a year now, and like, I've never felt better in my entire life. So I think like it is proof that it actually does work, but you have to do it. And that's the hard part. Most of the time, the hardest part is starting. And once you start seeing the results, reaffirmed and affirmed over and over again. And you see why you should be doing it. So yeah, it's a good point. Everybody should do this.
We're where we are because of the things that we do. And if we want to get somewhere else, we have to change what we're doing. But the thing is, we don't particularly know what changes are going to get us there. So if we're not where we want to be right now, we just have to keep on changing stuff. Eventually, once we find the change that actually starts working, we'll keep doing that one. And if some changes don't work, let go of those. But that's the way that you get from where you are to where you want to be, is just by changing stuff.
Yeah, and then the changing gets fun because you're just learning new things. And that's the best part. That's what brings happiness too, I think. All right. So 9 promises. You want to add anything else? We're good?
That's all.
All right. Awesome. So 9 promises that can bring happiness. Everybody should be happy, right? You guys, really do put this stuff into practice. Check us out if you're watching us on YouTube. Click notifications, subscribe, share with a friend. It really helps us out a lot. Check us out on all the podcast apps and all that. And we'll be back midweek with another quick fix. Until then, though, later, Andy.
Later, Danny.